Welcome back to Behind the Ballot, where politics meets real life. We break down state and federal issues, showing how policy shapes everyday Americans. Engaged, balanced, and informative. That's our promise. I'm your host, Mikal Jenkins.
And this is Muhammad Ali chiming in as well. And Mikal, I'm excited for today's episode with everything that's been going on over the last week or two with the developments of Iran.
Yeah, there's a lot going on the global front. We'll call it the global dimensions, and then as well on the domestic front that do have pieces that relate to what's going on the global stage, as well as various pieces of new legislation have also been introduced as well. And before we get started, I am a big cinema fan, so I did watch the Oscars. So shout out to Michael B. Jordan on getting his first Oscar for Best Actor in Sinners. Great movie if no one has watched it. Yeah, and also shout out to the cast and director of One Battle After Another because they won Best Best Original, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Director, and they just blew it out the park. And also shout out to Ludwig as well. He's the composer for Sinners. That dude is on the run. 3 Grammys and three Oscars every single time they've had one. So he does amazing. He did the music for The Mandalorian for those who've watched. Great artist, honestly. But let's get started. And really, let's jump with the war cost and congressional scrutiny that's really been going around. So as we know, Pentagon officials briefed the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee on Defense, which took place March 10th to the 12th. So at the first 6 days of operations against Iran, it has cost over $11.3 billion, roughly $1.8 billion per day, covering munitions, deployments, and strikes. House and Senate Democrats demand public testimony from Secretary Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. And I'm looking forward to that hearing, and if they even abide by it, which I think that they would. But this hearing would focus on strategy, authorization, objectives, and costs, threatening to stall Senate business through the War Powers Resolution until hearings are held. So the classified nature of early briefings fueled a lot of frustration and calls for greater transparency amid civilian casualties and economic fallout, as we've seen that now the Trump administration is actually starting to go after individuals in the press for how they have covered the Iran story, stating that AI is out there manipulating footage and putting out fake posts, but those posts and videos that he is stating are fake, like the one about I think it's the U.S. tanker that's hit and explode, and then this huge explosion.
Saw that.
There are individuals that are accounting that these are real. Individuals that are either on the ground or from reputable news sources are stating that these images, these reports are real from what's actually happening. So we're now seeing another layer of that fascist ideology, where he even thinks that fair reporting on the war, even if it is in a bad light, which is accurate, is somehow hurting democracy within America, or in his mind, hurting the president. When before we hopped on, me and Muhammad were talking, there's a lot of buyer's remorse right now with this war. Everyone sees it, from the Republican Party, Democratic Party, and members that are in the Pentagon and within intelligence circles. They understand that Trump bit off more that he could chew. And he is wanting to walk this back. He's even stated publicly and privately expressed conflicting views. And then on March 15th on board Air Force One, he stated, you could make the case that maybe we shouldn't even be there at all because we don't need it. We have a lot of oil. So he knows that we shouldn't even be within this mess. But yet he was pulled on his chain by Netanyahu, by Israel, to start this war. And we have heard all of the objectives change from, Iran was weeks away from getting a nuclear weapon or missiles to reach United States, to Israel was going to launch the attack first, so they pulled our hand. So there is no clear message about this war. And we're seeing it every time one of them, whether it's Hegseth, Rubio, or the president come up to the mic, it's conflicting views across the board. And we know that we have all the oil. We have oil here in the States. We know that we went after Venezuela, and he stated that they're going to try to ramp up that production. But that's going to take months on end, if not a year, just to get how that crude oil is. Like our oil and Iranian oil is a lot easier and faster to process compared to that of Venezuela. So not only do you have the execs when we took over Venezuela state this is uninvestable, they are now also talking to Trump and saying you need to find an off ramp for this war because the global energy crisis is only going to exacerbate with the closures of the Strait of Hormuz. And also, I believe there's another closure of a strait that's looking to happen as well. That's more in the details of the notes as we get through them. But what were you going to say, Muhammad?
I was gonna say, and the big thing about this all is just what we're hearing from him from the original reasons as to why we needed to go in. Mm-hmm. And I think what you heard a lot about it from is that it's generally a threat to the peace of the Middle East, which there is no peace in the Middle East. And that Iran is consistently, fueling these proxies. Saudi Arabia and Israel were the ones who were pushing for Trump to take part in this war. And so because they both want to get rid of Iran for their own reasons. Saudi Arabia because they hate the Shia, the government, and they also hate the proxies of the Iranian government. And then Israel because Iran is very strongly against it. And one of the reasons why, the main reason why, supposedly, reportedly, I should actually more accurately say, of why we came in there and went into Iran at the moment we did was because there was reputable threats that they were going to attack Israel if Israel attacked them without our backing, and they ended up still attacking Israel. But point being is that the largest reason why we got roped into this was because of our geopolitical allies. Now you could argue, well, yeah, that's what being an ally is for. If your allies go into a war, you're supposed to go to war to help them out. But this does nothing to America. Iran does nothing to America threatening wise. The only thing
there's been the chance of death to America. There's been, the use of proxies in that region that have been tied to Iran that have had, American deaths. But it's not like at a sense where, other countries aren't also responsible of those things. And you don't see us going around and trying to topple them over. Only at the request of Israel we're doing this.
And I love it's like I feel like Israel has to be behind this, like their propaganda. Because so often like you'll see come out from like Zionist media and they'll say, oh well, if you don't support attacking Iran, you're against America. They chant death to America all the time. And I'm like, well, according to you guys, they've been chanting it for 4 decades now, and what have they done to us? Nothing but chant death to America. I'm like, I'm sure people in China are cussing out America constantly because they don't like us. Does that give us a reason to go in there and invade the country? Exactly. Like, great. So the rhetoric of a nation is meaning more than its actions. Their actions haven't led to any American deaths until recently. That's because we bombed their country. And they, and aside from that, the reason why I bring this up is because we've seen a lot of conflicting reasons from Trump as to why we went in the first place. And now we're seeing him try to give, like you just mentioned, giving us reasons for why we shouldn't even be there in the first place. Like, oh, we don't really need the oil. We literally don't need the oil. Well, less than like 1% of our oil comes from Iran for good reason. Because we don't, from the Strait of Hormuz in general, because we don't buy oil from that region of the world. We have our own oil. We have a lot now, especially we've got a lot of oil in the Americas that we use and procure.
Oh, I think Muhammad might have froze.
China, Russia, action lost. No, MJ, am I here?
Yeah, I can hear you. It skipped a little bit, probably like 2 seconds, but it did pick you back up. Yeah,
All right, cool. So this was, and what we were actually seeing from Trump, he publicly asked, or I should say the United States State Department publicly asked its allies with help with reopening the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
and every ally said no. Like, this is not our war. This is not something we're interested in. This is not something we want to deal with. Japan, who gets quite a bit of oil from from that strait, also explicitly said no, and they're our biggest Pacific partner. And
Yeah, they
it's.
don't want to come help, and he's bashed.
I mean, why would they?
Yeah, he's
Why
bashed
should
NATO
they?
so many
Why should
times,
they?
and he's even stated, Japan, South Korea, and China should come to our aid as well. When it's like, I think Germany and Greece have stated that this is not NATO's war, which, I mean, it technically is not.
It's
Israel
not
launched the attack.
It doesn't
first.
threaten Europe.
Like, it doesn't threaten Europe at all. It's no, not at all. But there have been a lot of allies shifting, especially we're seeing a lot of war powers shifting as well, with the escalation and tensions rising with China and Taiwan, which we will definitely get to when we get to the global dimensions. But even with Taiwan and China, we've said on this podcast multiple times that this was something that's going to happen. United States would be stretched thin, and something like this would take place, where a huge massing of aerial forces and maritime forces would be circling around Taiwan. And then you couple that with the Trump administration moving the THAAD missiles from South Korea to Israel. Now you can start to see North Korea scratching their heads and saying, well, I have nuclear capabilities already. So why not just, poke the bear with South Korea? Because what is the United States going to try to do to me? We haven't tried to take him out this long, even though we know there's such a horrible regime there. But yet we spent no time taking out the supreme leader and did not even have a adequate timeline or operation for how we were going to technically win this war. And now
just
they're trying to say
Maduro as well. Like, we have no. Yeah. I'll give this to the North Koreans. Nuclear deterrence, the best kind of deterrent. I mean, we could have very easily done what we did to Iran, Iran, Afghanistan in the past, Iraq in the past, what we just did to Venezuela recently. We could have done that to North Korea as well, but we didn't, because they had the backing of nuclear China, and then they had the backing of their own nukes.
Like, you would think it would be like, on the historical presence, I would put this almost in the same when we took out Gaddafi, in the sense. When we took him out, it was nothing but utter chaos within the region for decades to come. So this is some of that same thing that we're seeing. You're taking out a very popular religious leader. And the religious leader is different than a political leader, in the sense, because you don't have that backing of faith for the leader. So in the sense that it's two mistakes that happened. Obviously, Obama taking out Gaddafi led to thousands of attacks, and also individual deaths within the United States service, as well as abroad in the region. And now we're seeing that as well with the Trump administration in Iran. It's like we're not able to learn from previous mistakes and just make things better. Like, he said he had a call with a former president who stated that he would have loved to do what Trump did and take out the supreme leader. And funny enough, someone said it was 45 talking to 47.
I saw that.
And I was like, that's actually,
you know who I think it was, if that is true?
Who do you think it was?
I think it was either Bush or Obama.
I don't know if it was Obama. I don't know.
I mean, that man loved his war crimes. He killed more people with drones than any other president. That man loved bombing.
Yeah, he did. But I mean, obviously it wasn't Joe Biden, because I don't know, though, because Belkin was stating, the former Secretary of State was saying that Israel tried to rope in both Biden and Obama into doing these things, and they did not. So, I mean, I would think maybe it was Bush. Maybe it was like a scenario, he's on the phone saying, I wish I was able to do more than I actually was able to get accomplished. Maybe he thought that he, in some ways, when he went to Iraq, those actions somehow empowered Iran to be where they're at now. So now he's having that level of regret as well. But that's a conversation that we don't know the details of. And
whether or not Trump was even being truthful.
Yeah, if he was even being truthful. I doubt that he honestly was. Because I think he was saying that he wrote it in the book that he knew when 9/11 was going to happen and all of these
Oh,
things.
he said he
Yeah,
knew about when 9/11 was
on
going to
his
happen a year
yeah,
before it happened. I'm like,
he
this.
was on
If
his
I was one of
LeBron
his
status.
voters, man, I'd be furious hearing that. Like, so you knew about it, and you didn't say anything about it. You just knew.
Yeah,
How'd you know it was going to happen?
yeah, like it's like he's on his LeBron status. If you ever seen the videos of LeBron lying
Those make
about
me laugh so
various things,
much.
they're hilarious. But Trump has also indicated that he would not rule out deploying U.S. ground troops into Iran if necessary, but signaled that seizing relocated enriched uranium stockpiles, which are apparently hidden in the Pickaxe Mountain bunker after earlier strikes had taken place, that this movement for ground troops deployment on the Pickaxe Mountains was not imminent currently, but he has showed particular interest in capturing the Crag Islands, which is Iran's primary oil export terminal, heading up to 90% of crude exports, believing it could deliver an economic knockout to Tehran. And recent U.S. strikes have targeted military facilities on the island while sparing core oil infrastructure to preserve leverage. So he has gone ahead and bombed that island pretty bad, honestly. But then that also had Iran state that they're actually going to start to go after, I believe it's business infrastructure that the United States has within Iran, and told individuals to start evacuating. So things are escalating in the terms of infrastructure that's being hit. And Israel isn't listening to what we're saying about them not going after Iran's oil refineries, because they did just blow up another one. So it's not like not only have we been dragged into this war, we can't even pull the chain on the dog anymore, is what it seems like. And as all this is going on between every age group in America, the support for Israel has fallen and is continuing to fall. And it shouldn't be something that mystifies them,
Really
something that they should understand. Because I mean, from even New Jersey with the NJ 11 race, and all of the other races that have taken place where APAC money has failed, and even on a national scale where we're seeing in foreign policy how, and even in domestic policy with Epstein, how entrenched Israel is, it makes sense why their support is dwindling. And I'm glad to see it, and I know it's going to be more and more as new individuals get elected to Congress and even at the state level as well. There very well could be a formalized push at the national level to actually have APAC registered as a foreign lobbyist, which it should have. The last president to really push for that was JFK, and we all know what ended up happening with that situation. So it's not like there's a precedence for these things to have started. It's just up to members of Congress to have the heart to do it. And I think Massey could be a great individual, and Rokon would be two great individuals to bridge between Republican and Democrats on this one issue, just as well as they have been able to do with Epstein.
And you bringing up JFK also makes me remember this one interesting Lyndon B. Johnson video where he was essentially talking about Israel's plan to expand. And he was talking about, well, on the world scale, if you try to force out 500,000 people, then you're not going to be able to get that goal done. So how do you do it? You do it slowly and you do it surely. And then you use the diplomatic arm that you have to be able to argue that it was for a good need, for the protection of your own people. It was like, then you just got to make sure you play the right cards, have the right allies, say the right things, and do the right things in the way that people don't think you're being purposely malicious, or you control them through a means that as needed if you have to. And he was basically like, for going from Israel pre 69, even before the UN mandate in 69, Israel was like a fraction of its size, and then it grew 3 times in size, I believe, during the 10-day war, when they basically took out the entire air forces of the surrounding countries, and then they basically just gained air superiority, which allowed them to seize massive amounts of land very quickly. So then it was just the excuse of the benefit that the Israelis had, and Israel as a whole, was that the American medium was fully on their side, and so were many of the politicians. And then you just kind of, it kept that power sphere going on for quite a while. I mean, Trump even said a few years ago, he said, if you were an anti-Israel politician, you had no room in American politics. But now it seems like if you are an Israeli politician, now
You
you have
have
room.
room in American politics without it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
and he's right,
almost
dude. I mean, look, there's a saying of the uniparty. You know, these people are bickering about things left and right regarding economics in America, regarding domestic policy, criminal crime policy, immigration policy. But then when it comes to war and money to Israel, never any debate. It is always
yeah.
95% of Congress voting for it. Always.
So whenever they say they don't have money for these things, they are lying to your face because they have money for Israel, but they won't have money for your healthcare, your tax cuts, your infrastructure, all those main important things that we do subsidize over there in Israel. We're not doing for our own American citizens. And even looking at the domestic disconnect, even with that, is at a House GOP retreat in Doral, Florida. This was March 11th. Trump privately told Speaker Mike Johnson, who is now losing his House majority. Before I get to that, they actually said during the press conference where Trump was basically stating he knew that all these things were going to happen, like 9/11 and so forth. He was talking about the one congressman that was terminally ill. And then Trump blurted out, Trump literally blurted out, he would have been dead by June if doctors didn't intervene. And Mike Johnson literally said that was not public. I'm like, bro, you're just blurting out anything at this point. But that also kind of shows that the dwindlingness of his age really starting to show on him. Because I'm sure
I just don't think he's got a filter on him, honestly. Probably maybe due to old age.
I'm sure he was told that was like private information, like keep that under wraps. It's not public. We don't want it to get out, because now then it looks like they're just having just keeping geriatric individuals alive to be able to hold on their majority, and that's just immoral on any single ground you can.
I'll say we saw the Democrats and Dianne Feinstein woman was literally being pulled in on a wheelchair because she just had a stroke and couldn't vote. I mean, is she's not still in power, is she? Pretty sure
I think she Dianne Feinstein. Oh no, she might have.
I think she died 3 years ago.
In office. Yeah,
she died in office. Yeah, literally, woman died in office. I mean, it's like they'll do it to whenever it's useful for them. And I just know these, once they get to this position, these are old people. Think about it. Honestly, just think about it. Because
they probably have nothing to lose. You know what I mean?
Do members of Congress get health insurance? I mean, I'm sure the woman is rich. Actually, no, I'm not even going to.
They get the health insurance.
No. I mean, once they leave, once they're done serving.
Well, I think it was like with Marjorie Taylor Greene's situation as well. I know she was able to keep her pension from the amount of time.
I know she gets like a bit of a pension for being there 5 years.
I'm not sure about healthcare. I mean,
But I was going to say, being a politician for 3 decades, you should have enough money saved up to be able to afford your own healthcare.
Well, that's also why they're able to be 80, 85 plus and still be able to, be in Congress, because they have such great healthcare compared to everyone else. I don't even know what their plans are even like, to be honest. It could be something completely different. No, definitely better than North. But as I had started this conversation, Trump privately told Speaker Mike Johnson that no one gives a shit about housing and urged the party to prioritize culture war issues over advancing the bipartisan 21st Century Road Act, which aims to boost affordable housing supply and restrict larger investor ownership. This is things like BlackRock, all of the private equity firms that have been talked about previously on our podcast, actually, when we were talking about a little bit the housing crisis and really what's making things go up and down. And in the beginning, the Trump administration was saying it was migrants that were buying up housing and things of this nature, but it actually is these private equity firms just buying up houses, cash on hand, over bidding regular buyers, regular Americans, by almost 2 to 5 times of what the asking price is. So with all this going on, and we've talked about the median home buying age being at almost 40 to 45, that you would think that, yes, people do care about housing, and that we just don't care about the level of culture war issues that he's trying to rage so that he can try to pull your vote, when he's not even focusing on the biggest issues at hand. Gas is $3.75. I saw $3.73. I think I saw on my way home, and it's just everything's going to continue to just pile up on top of one another on the achievements that he has not hit, because there's a lot of them that he has not hit from when he was speaking at his inauguration of the golden age of America. Because I'm sure the middle income household individual is truly believing that this is the golden age of America.
Yeah, no,
This
it
is
makes
more
me
like the
laugh.
gilded age of America, if you want to put anything to it at this point, where the 1% is overriping the amount of money that they have compared to the bottom 90%,
You know what makes
99%
me
of
laugh?
individuals.
I remember when Trump first became president this time around, people like his supporters were like, "Oh, it's time for the Roaring 20s. We're gonna have the best economy. It's gonna be like the
No,
1920s
it
all
was
over
the
again."
not forgotten. It was the putting back up the forgotten man, the forgotten blue collar worker, all of that stuff, like getting that to that age in America. But it's like it's not really. We're not there.
What made me laugh is two things. One, during the 1920s, America wasn't really doing that great. I mean, we had prohibition kick in, so then the government lost a lot of that. Fun fact, it was about 30 to 40% of the federal government, all the money the federal government made back in the 1920s before prohibition was from tax on alcohol. Think about that. Tax on alcohol gave 30 to 40% of the federal government its revenue back then because they just spent so much less than what they do now. They but also on top of that, once prohibition kicked in, they had to get rid of the tax on alcohol because it's now illegal. You know what tax they put in place to cover the money that they lost?
Income tax.
Income tax. Ding, ding,
Ding
ding,
ding
ding.
ding.
So the Roaring 20s saw some of the worst tax implementation policies that we know of that still plague our country today. Don't even get me started on income tax. And now the government just fully relies on our earnings and our money. We can't even keep the sweat on our brow.
Yeah.
And after the Roaring 20s, the Great Depression happened. So when I was hearing people talk about, oh, it's time for the Roaring 20s again, I was just like, do you guys know what happened?
Really,
It wasn't just people
place?
getting drunk at speakeasies having a good time. It was a shit
not
show.
Great Gatsby. This is reality here.
Literally, none of you are filthy rich. None of you have connections to these speakeasy people who are like the ones organizing these parties. And do speakeasies even exist now? Just go find one. Like you don't have to.
Which are great places to go to if you ever. Speakeasies are
They
great.
seem like a good vibe.
They're always especially in, not to get off topic, but in New York they have some good ones. I believe in DC, me and my girlfriend went. They have some very good ones in DC, I will say. But I'll see the ones that we went to. But yes, it's absolutely
to bring it back to the political point.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild.
So even back then, there was a lot of issues that led to the depression. One of them was being housing, because people just couldn't afford to afford their housing. Hence why so many people went homeless. Banks closed, people ran out of money, people didn't have money, XYZ, just the economic collapse. So now to just see the president himself he didn't just blatantly say that housing doesn't really matter. He blatantly said in another interview, I want housing prices to go up. So the people who he is just literally,
he's there for the boomers.
I don't want lazy people to be able to buy houses, and I want those who own houses to be able to make more money. Literally, it was like, okay, well, the rich get richer, the older get richer, everybody except the most people in America who are the ones that are trying to make up and work.
Emerging class.
There's a reason why the age that hates Trump the most is the Gen Z and millennials. It's not because these people just have different political views and those older than them. It's because they're being affected by this man's political ideology so much in such a negative manner that those older than them are not. And then you get so many other things going. I do, MJ. I know more conservative men my age than I do liberal men. But based off, every single one of them still hate Trump. Everyone.
Yeah. I have friends that are the same way as well. Individuals that are conservative, but not in the camp of Trump.
And I knew some conservatives who were in Trump's camp for a while, but then it's just one thing that happens. Then they're like, okay, I can see why he's such an asshole. And it's what's interesting to me is seeing how he really doesn't seem to understand. I think it's the age. I think it's the age mixed with bad people in his cabinet and in his administration.
It's honestly a loss of self-awareness, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, Jared Kushner, reportedly, the reason why Trump, we mentioned this earlier, was really about going to invading Iran in the first place was because of wanting that public support poll numbers to go up and more. And Jared Kushner said, hey, like Bush did after 9/11 and he invaded invaded Iraq and Afghanistan, he had great numbers, so will you. And now one of the reasons why we're seeing Trump want to back out of this so badly is because it's not working out in his favor at all. Gas prices skyrocketing. People disagree with the Iranian war, and more people are just now, especially because people are seeing how heavy-handed Israel has his influence over the United States politics. People are thinking, well, what the hell? This guy just is there. It's the tail wagging the dog. We're the United States of America. Why are we
Yeah.
being bodied and controlled by such a small nation? Our ally, but we got to do what they want us to do, or they're not going to, or they're just going to completely disobey and disregard our thoughts. Like, that's not an ally of America. That's a wild dog.
Yeah.
And I really do think that there's a direct correlation between people who still support Israel, and for the most part, and people who still support Donald J. Trump in this term of the presidency. Because I know, like
I wouldn't be non-surprised about that.
yeah,
honestly.
and I think the more he ties himself to that sinking ship of Israel, the worse it's going to get for conservatives. But he has fully tied himself to that sinking ship.
Oh, 100%. And it's what was I just getting ready to say? Oh, I lost it.
Was it about housing prices and how he doesn't?
No,
care?
it was another form of legislation that I had on my mind. I literally lost it, but it's all right. It may come back to me at some point. But yes, as you're saying, with Israel and so forth, there has been leaked audio that kind of gives a more clearer picture about the AIPAC influence on the Trump administration officials. So leaked audio from an April 2025 AIPAC session widely circulated during the war captured CEO Elliot Brandt boasting of special access and influence over key Trump national security figures such as Secretary of State Marco Rubio, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, NSA advisor Mike Walls, whom he described as lifelines for Israeli interest. Now, you have the CEO of AIPAC stating that, and you have all these actions by Trump that only more so reinforce that. And even his previous acts in 2017, as him being the only sitting president to kiss the wall itself. Everyone has not done that. They at least visited the wall either as campaigning or when they were no longer president. He's the only one, and it's very fitting for a lot of things that he's done.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is where I was going to go with it. With with all the stuff with AIPAC and domestic things with housing. I saw that he did appoint Vance as the fraud czar once again, even though he already did that a few weeks ago. But he's focusing on Minnesota. But it's just important. I want our listeners to understand there's also other levels of fraud that go on from the Jewish community, specifically within Lakewood, New Jersey. If no one knows, Lakewood, New Jersey has been basically completely taken over by the Jewish community. I'm talking like school boards have been taking over, majority Jewish. Funding has been taken over grossly. So it's just interesting that we're seeing this narrowed scope on Minneapolis, New York, and California, when you have, and even just in New Jersey itself, a small town like that is being grossly taken over and nothing being actually done about it. So
and this is what I'll add too, because the terminology taking over, it makes it seem like there's like a malicious intent by these individuals. And let's just operate on a good faith basis that these people all do just want to live around their like-minded people who share the same religion. Now, the reason why people get fed up with it is because America's a melting pot, and when any one ethnic group congregates, it's easy to draw a lens and a magnifying glass to what those people are doing, because it's like, oh, well, this is clearly within their community how they do this. Like when people try to go to high Muslim number communities like the Somalians in Minnesota and be like, oh, look at this childcare fraud. They're not just going around saying, oh, all Muslims commit fraud. They're saying this specific community of Somalian Muslims is committing large amounts of fraud. Why? And there was that one story from, blanking on his name, we talked about this one the other episode, but where Nick Shirley reshared it, but it was somebody similar to Nick Shirley, where he shared a story about him in New Jersey, one of the Jewish communities, talking about how they have welfare fraud. Yeah,
I think it's like Lakewood, because they have like 6-8 children, these Jewish families. Like it's telling our listeners without a doubt, check it out. I ran into one video. One of my friends brought it up to me, texted me about it. So I looked into it a little bit more. And now it's a lot. It's on my feed a lot. These individuals have like actually been chased by police, watched by police. It's the craziest things ever. But it just shows that there is not a balancing scale when it comes to Israel. I mean, individuals who are Jewish and other individuals if they're doing something wrong or in a negative light. As you see on one end, it's not even being touched. On even the state level, nothing is being done. Even on the congressional level, from our members of the House and the Senate in New Jersey, nothing is being done. I think the town gets around like $6 million, I believe, or they have a very high budget overall. But
I mean, a few of the big reasons why is because one, a lot of these religious organizations that really are that kind of close community knitted, they all vote the same way. So if you're a congressman
Yeah.
trying to make it or say something about this and you're going against them, they're all going to vote against you, all of
Yeah.
them. And the second reason why is just because of that Israeli connection. I mean, we saw with I'm blanking on his name, but the Nick Shirley's acquaintance, I'll just say, he when Nick shared the story about the Minnesota Somalians, it was taken with huge praise by the people on the right, like, oh yes, thank you for doing true journalism, bringing a light to this shadow of welfare fraud and fraud in general. But then when he shared a story about the exact same thing in New Jersey, people were like, oh, well, how dare you share about this? These people are just trying to live their lives. They're not doing anything wrong. Who are they harming? XYZ. And I just want to also add, the big issue is if you're a private individual, who cares? Honestly, who cares? It's when the government picks a side that's the issue. And we saw the Trump and the federal admin preach and cry about how the Somalians are stealing American welfare money and just committing massive amounts of fraud that are costing the government massive amounts of money. And then when you try to report it on another group of people who are doing the exact same thing, but it's a group of people who they don't want you to talk about, then all of a sudden you're a bad faith actor who is anti-Semitic and who has clear malicious goals in plan. And I think more so even most people literally don't care if you're Jewish or not. They don't. Most people do care when you get special treatment just because of who you are. And even more people care when you correlate one of America's greatest political blunders, supporting the state of modern day Israel, to an ethnic group of people. It's like, imagine saying, oh, well, even though these Muslims are committing fraud left and right, it's okay because Saudi Arabia gives us so much oil. Like,
it's insane.
No, like two different problems. The Saudis aren't even good for us. You know what I mean? And it's like just taking, sharing apples to oranges situation. It's not an exact tea because Israel's committing massive war crimes, but it's just in general, an ethnic connection to a religious state doesn't mean anything, nor especially in a country that's secular and has religious freedom, does it give you the right to use that religion as a means to shield yourself from criticism. And the federal government does that. That's what's infuriating. Like it doesn't even do it with Christians. And you would think that a country that's majority Christian would care about defending Christians. They don't. They send them to die in the Middle East for the Israelis. It's maddening.
Absolutely maddening. And just the last little domestic piece I just wanted to add, it's real short. The Trump administration also gone ahead and is even talking about mass deportations for illegal immigrants, and is actually looking to increase the number of visas they allow to migrant workers to fill up the farm worker shortage, given their previous deportations in the beginning of the year. So it's funny that now they're walking back on just another top issue that they campaigned on. And now moving towards the global dimension, specifically looking at the Strait of Hormuz status and coalition efforts. As Muhammad stated earlier, that Trump is looking to put together some form of coalition to try to get back open the Strait of Hormuz. So Iran has maintained an effective partial closure of the strait to hostile or U.S.-Israeli affiliated traffic, while the foreign minister and UN envoy are stating restrictions would continue until a permanent peace deal or security guarantees are secured. Selective allowances were made for some international tankers, including Iranian, Indian, and Chinese vessels, to avoid total economic collapse. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent publicly stated the U.S. was fine with certain non hostile transits to stabilize global supplies, such as taking off sanctions of Russian oil and things of that nature. Private U.S. and regional assessments projected the crisis could last up to 6 months without major concessions. Trump has announced also discussions with approximately 7 countries, which is what me and Mohammed were talking about earlier, to form a naval coalition to secure the strait, urging them to deploy warships. He warned NATO and its allies that it would be a very bad future without cooperation. This is the same NATO that he has targeted many, many times, and even during the Russian and Ukraine war has dismissed them as even a power. Responses were largely negative in this response, as Germany's defense minister rejected participation outright in this war, stating that it is not NATO's war. And then you have France, the UK, Italy, Spain, Greece, and others express caution or refusal, citing escalation risk and conflict's non-NATO character. So as you can see, we are isolating our own selves by being the errand boy for Israel. We see that our allies who we have been there for on numerous occasions will not come to us because they understand the gravity of the situation and how worse that it can get. And they understand that this is not a NATO war or a war that threatens any NATO state outright. And as well as with Israel going ahead and doing this operation within Iran with our help, there's a parallel operation going on within Lebanon. So they're not even stopping at Iran, as which we all know. They are looking to much more expand their withhold within the Middle East. Israel Security Council approved expanding the buffer zone in southern Lebanon by several kilometers to push Hezbollah rockets and drone threats farther from northern Israel. The move involved additional ground incursions, troop deployments, and airstrikes, to placing more Lebanese civilians and increasing the risk of a wider multi-war front linked to the Iran conflict. So not only is this conflict looking to be a strategic win for Iran if things pan out as they are, you have Israel starting another war/operation in a whole nother region within the Middle East. So they aren't even taken to grips with what is really going on. They're just pushing their expansion at any corner in any direction and path they see fit within the Middle East, and they can because we're the United States and we back them. They understand that most countries will not fight against us and cannot fight against us. But that's why you have all of our allies shifting towards other areas. You have some of the Gulf states looking at investments that the United States have with them as regards to security, as seeing that Iran can withhold the bombardment of Israel and U.S. And we're seeing that Israel is getting hit hard and hard and hard by each wave that comes. As I was saying, on March 15th, political analysis found several key U.S. allies, particularly in Europe, increasingly favoring closer ties with China, attributing global instability to Trump's policies and viewing America's role as the dominant superpower as a warning. Gulf states, as I said, have begun reassessing long-term security dependence on the United States and accelerating diversification towards China and Russia. Separately, as we all know, as I talked about earlier, and as we said on this podcast about Taiwan and South Korea, China has amassed thousands of fishing boats in coordinated geometric formations in the East China Sea. These action experts have interpreted this as hybrid warfare preparations potentially tied to Taiwan contingencies. So as we are securing, we secured Venezuela, their oil, which is around I believe 20% of what is imported to China. We also have Iran as well, where China gets a lot of their oil from, even though they are now, Iran is now allowing for ships to pass through there. It is still a hit given there is still a level of closure that is taking place. So with these two, Iran and China being an active, I'm sorry, Iran and Venezuela now being an active involvement with the United States in a conflict, you have China realigning themselves and wanting to make a move on Taiwan, which is one of the biggest countries that makes the chips that is in every single electronic device within the states and even around the globe. So we're seeing this amassing of China, and we're seeing North Korea, South Korea tensions continue to simmer as they have been shooting ballistic missiles out into the sea. This is North Korea I'm talking about specifically. And with the THAAD missiles moved from South Korea, you can very well set the stage for multiple conflicts. And with the United States being so focused on Iran and Israel's ultimate goal, Greater Israel, they understand that we're stretched as thin as we not can be, but we're stretched thin. They're looking at the numbers that are coming out, how much money this is costing us. I believe it's $20 trillion. It's been $20 trillion is cost the taxpayer themselves from this ongoing war. So we're seeing a lot of constraintment and a lot of resources from the United States. And we're seeing our adversaries notice this and start to build up in ways that have been the path and have been the point set forth, honestly, since 2017, when the nuclear deal was ultimately ripped up, honestly.
They there's this one quote I like that I think I've shared it once on here before. That decades can happen in months and months can happen in decades.
Yeah.
And I think we might be looking at, honestly, definitely the start of changes globally. And what I want to see is if the Democrats, once they take hold of the House in the midterms, if they will force another war powers resolution so they can put Trump on the hot seat and require to go through Congress for further military actions. Because I think that'd also be a very good, just in general, check and balance for presidents in the future.
Yeah, definitely
they
would be
get
a great
far
check.
too comfortable being able to execute operations and more from their comfortable seat, bombing thousands like it's nothing.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
and I think that also just be good for the United States in the future by far. But what I am curious of is, honestly, I wonder how much North Korea and China still communicate. I gotta look into that, actually, or like friendly.
Yeah, that would be interesting to
Any
see
North
if there
Korean
is a
choices
level
are influenced
of
by China.
communication within that. But we do know there is actually, I believe, reactivated talks between the United States and Iran. But however, the Iranian
See where
foreign
things go.
minister said something that was pretty astounding. He said, "Why don't you ask for a ceasefire with the United States?" And it's because we want to teach them a lesson so hard that enemies never think of attacking Iran again. And honestly, how can you blame them? Because we brought them to the table multiple times to get a peace deal done. And every single time, Israel always attacked and put us back at square one, or Trump, the errand boy, ripped up the agreement. And even Biden was working to get an agreement done, a nuclear deal done. Like Nick Fuentes has gone into this detailedly, and he has changed sides completely on where he stands at. And I was never one that agreed with him in a lot of his controversial statements, but he's
the fucking Christian nationalist in America as a Catholic. As a Catholic, you know who the KKK was lynching aside from just black people? Catholics. And dude supports that kind of cause. Oh my god.
But he's coming around. He's seeing the truth, at least on the political and Trump side of things. And soon, a lot of individuals will as well, either before November or after November. But continuing on, U.S. intelligence assessed that.
I want to touch a little bit more on this then before we go on. Even though it's a little bit of similar situation. I do think that Iran does have a stance right now where if it actually does block off, basically win against the United States and Israel, it will make it look like a far more difficult enemy. And I think it also make all on the same scale make America look far less capable of what people thought they were of in the past.
Oh, 100%. It puts all of our adversaries literally a bird's eye view at our capabilities and what we mess up in and what we excel in as well. So
Especially
it
in the
really
Middle East, which
shows.
is a very key area for American
Yeah,
militaristic control.
100%. So like individuals that are not partaking in this war, Russia, China, they are able to use all the battle information that's out there, all the intel that's out there, and they could possibly use that for their own benefit and advantage if they ever do look to get into a scuffle with the United States. We know that China is edging on that barrier, but we'll see if that is something that is fully triggered. I've always said 2027 would be the year, if not well, I've always said 2027, so I'm gonna stick with that. 2027 being the year that Taiwan would be attacked by China. And funny enough, this was all a thing ever since I was in freshman year of college, because I remember writing a report on the South China Sea and about how China was actually pumping sand into the South China Sea to expand their maritime border to get closer and closer to actually Taiwan. So these seeds have been laid
Interesting.
all the way since the teens, and that was in 2015 when I started. Well, 2016, you could say 15, 16, from when I started my freshman year of college. But yeah, it's all this. All of this has kind of been in the works or the ground laid from then. Because think about it, you had that with South China Sea, then you had a year later the removal of the nuclear deal. And you have all these things that are now taking place now. So everything was set in stone 10 years ago when you think about it, truly, because we did have the same president 10 years ago. So it makes
Yeah,
sense.
which is crazy to
Yeah, it's
think
crazy to
about.
think.
Oh my god.
But overall, U.S. intelligence assessed that Iran's leadership is largely intact. With actually, this was a they were giving a detailed report about the new supreme leader, and there is some injuries that he has, but he's also apparently gay. I don't know if anyone saw that coming.
I don't know how
That
true
report,
that is, but
yeah. I was hearing that the
yeah.
report was made to Trump and he was basically like hysterically laughing. Yeah, I don't know the validity of the truth to that, but from what I was reading, I was like, that's insane to how that's even in.
I mean, it could be possible, but I mean, I think that's the stuff like that generally only comes out as news just to kind of discredit people as much as possible. Like those little soft news bits. Like, does it really matter that he's gay? People be like,
Oh
oh,
no, it's
well,
just a funny, nice little funny bit in the grand scheme of it all.
I was actually going to bring this up to like a serious point. I'm talking about how Saudi Arabian leader Mohammed bin Salman, he's in the Epstein files, like voted up smiling with Epstein. So I also think it's funny to think that the three Epstein connected countries really with Middle Eastern leaders, which is Saudi, Israel, and US, how they're all behind the Iranian attack. I'm like, I wonder why those three specifically. There has to be because the Iranian proxies bother more than just those two countries. They bother other countries in the Middle East, but those countries don't want to fight Iran like those two do.
No. They want to.
I wonder if there's like what more of a reason could there be? Like, why do they want? If it was just militaristic Islamic leaders they're against, I mean, there's plenty of that throughout Africa and the Middle East.
Yeah, I mean, even in the Epstein files, there were accounts where Epstein was talking about Trump as saying he's a psychopath, and if he's ever cornered like a rat, he would strike Iran. And when you think about the Epstein files, his relationship with Israel, our listeners can piece this together themselves. Or you can listen back to a few of our podcast episodes where we piece this together for you. But however, Iran's leadership is very much largely still intact and not an imminent risk of collapse, despite the thousands of targets struck and significant military degradation that has happened. Energy executives, as I was saying, from Exxon, Chevron, and ConocoPhillips warned the administration officials that the prolonged closure is only going to make things worse. You're going to see that 120 per barrel once again. You're going to see prices from COVID once again. Right now. Yeah, I mean, it's 95 now. It's been bouncing back and forth, especially from over the weekends to now. It's kind of like what's the high point? Where is it really going to sit at for majority of his presidency? Because that's really going to be his onus in the midterms, and even in 2028, where there's also going to be another set of midterms for Senate and the House members as well. So it's like, what's going to be that top? That's really going to bring him to his bottom when you look at it. If this strait is continued to be closed, but inside the White House,
From what I read,
yeah,
Iran was going to let in certain countries freighters, but
yeah.
destroy
So
the
they
ones.
have begun now. Yeah, that's Chinese, Russia, Chinese, Indian freights are going through. U.S. and Israeli are being attacked, which is what they've said. And Trump is trying to get individuals to go through that strait with their military ships. And it's
Yeah,
like,
like,
you just want us to
hey,
get blown up. I'm like, what are
yeah.
you trying to do? You're trying to have a event take place that then riles up all of NATO's who jump into this war for his assistance. And as we know, there is no path for this war to be de-escalated on any measure, and it's going to continue to carry deep implications for the global energy market, our alliance structure, and as we've been talking about, U.S. domestic policies, and even voter sentiment ahead of future elections, especially within the midterms that are coming up within November. And
Dude,
with all, yeah,
I think I really think that like these gas prices are just the ice, the actual icing on the cake.
oh, it's only the icing on the cupcake.
People are being like,
It's
"Well,
so much
shit's
worse.
annoying." I don't agree with a lot of it, and the economy isn't really doing well. Like I'm personally not like soaring through the
Yeah,
sky. And
yeah.
then you then you add 40% price to a gallon of gas, and oh my god, dude, it's just literally the icing.
Everything's out, man. I
It
mean, go to the
is.
grocery store.
But
Yeah,
there's
I mean,
I always like the gas price thing idea,
because he
and
said that
because
so
you see
much
that every
during.
time you drive.
Yeah. Oh, I had to take a
That's the
Snapchat
one
because I
thing
was like,
you
wow.
know how much it costs. Like you might remember like the things you buy every day at every time at the grocery store, like eggs, milk, things like that. But like everybody knows how much gas costs. You see the
Yeah,
signs of it
something
everywhere.
that you don't forget because you're like, man, I gotta pay that. And it's like you just think, what's it gonna be
Like
the next day?
$3.79 today, $3.79.
Yeah,
Like
no,
good
seriously.
God.
Yeah, I drove. I saw my jaw drop. I was like, oh. I was like, I know they said the
Nah,
national
bro.
average was
Literally, same
370.
here.
I was like, I know they said national average was sitting around 370, but I'm like, we're not supposed to be getting back to pre-war numbers until mid 2027. I'm like, I guess they probably shouldn't have been cutting all those incentives for electric cars, huh? Because now those things are going to start booming. Because, I mean, we have basically more than a year until prices are going to get, if anything, back to regular. And who even knows if that's a true assessment of what's going to happen? Because who knows how long we're going to be dragged into this war and have all these prices just keep exacerbating out of control, and have our income, salary, and things just being taken for granted and making even less than previous generations. These are all the questions that we ask for our listeners to continue to ask themselves when it comes to voting and as the midterms come up. And we hope that you continue to join us here on Behind the Ballot. And as always, thank you for joining us today, where we keep politics engaged, balanced, and informative. Stay curious, stay critical, and always stay involved. I'm Mikal Jenkins, and until next time, keep looking beyond the headlines and behind the ballot.
And this is Muhammad Alec. God bless you all. God bless America. Have a good night.